One. Hello, everyone. In this video, I cannot believe I get to say this. I am fortunate enough to sit down one of my favorite filmmakers in the world. This interview is one that is very, very special to me. The amazing Joe Carnahan. I do not know where to begin. Joe is the director behind films such as Boss Level, Smokin Aces, The Grey, The A-Team, Narc, Stretch, and much, much more. To say it's a pleasure to chat with Joe has been an understatement. He's someone who, I mean, when I first started doing interviews, I couldn't get anyone to reply. And I was kind of like, okay, well, maybe this is something real journalists should do. And I was kind of, I was on the ropes. And then Joe got back to me and he said, yeah, I'd be happy to. And that showed me I could do interviews. And it really encouraged me. So I'm so grateful that I get to chat with Joe. And he's truly one of my favorite filmmakers. Like, Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to come
Oh,
on.
buddy,
How
it's
are you
my
doing
pleasure.
today?
That's maybe the greatest intro that I've not earned.
Oh, dude, I was going to call you a hack, but I thought it was easier to just say all that. You know what I'm saying?
Now that would be more appropriate, dude. That would be much more appropriate. No, Daniel, it's a pleasure, man, and thank you for being patient with me to finally sit down and chat with you. It's absolutely lovely, dude, and it is a reminder that persistence pays off. So thank you for that, man.
No, thank you, man. There was times where I was like, if I ever do introduce, like, it's just gonna berate me for annoying him so much. But I'm glad you see it
No,
as
dude.
persistence. I'm glad
No,
you
that's
see
what
it.
it takes, buddy. That's what it. Listen, that's what it
Oh,
takes. It's like like we always say, it's like if it's easy, anybody can do it. And again, you are a real journalist, dude. That's the thing. It's like, I remember years ago, I think it was Kevin Smith. Who I'll credit this with. He said, you just start telling yourself, "I'm a filmmaker. I'm a filmmaker," or whatever it is, whatever your passion may be, whatever the thing is you're pursuing. You tell yourself you're that thing, and you're that thing. It's like the credentials and the criteria are kind of self-born. You determine what those are and you follow up on those. And I think that's a big step. So you are a journalist, that is the way to view these things. And when you make that distinction, I think it gets a lot easier as opposed to thinking, well, I'm a hobbyist or whatever you would want to otherwise want to kind of categorize that as. I think it's really important to remind yourself the thing that you do and the thing you give your kind of your love and time to is absolutely what you are. I certainly look at it that way. So, but
you're totally right, man. I've watched all your interviews, and like I remember what I was so struck by was you talk about your career and you look at it, and there are so many times where projects fell through, and yet you still keep going. And I have so
sure.
much admiration, and there's such an honesty in the way you carry yourself and speak. I can tell, like when it comes to you, it is just graft. Like you are just putting in the work, man, and like. It was
You have
very
to, brother.
inspirational for me for hear that, man. But no, it's amazing. I mean, let's just jump into it. What does film
Absolutely.
what does film mean to you? I mean, growing up, were you watching, silent
I
French
was,
films or
yeah, you know what? No, Daniel, you know what? I was very much a child of the multiplex. I, I loved movies and it wasn't until, when I was a kid, you couldn't, you had four channels, you had, that's it. You didn't have 550 or you couldn't just dial up like, I wanted to watch whatever it was, French Connection, and boom, I found it. I wanted to watch, it's like, didn't have Criterion, didn't have all these wonderful resources to watch movies. So, I remember you used to wait up and like Jaws was the ABC, movie of the week. And it was like Ernie Anderson was Paul Thomas Anderson's dad, he was a famous announcer. And his voice is so reminiscent of my childhood for me because I remember that voice and like, and so you'd wait, you would be Jaws or it'd be Close Encounters. But I remember like I developed this kind of Spielberg early on because I'm like, my mother took me to see Raiders of the Lost Ark in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I think I was 11 years old, and that fundamentally changed my DNA. Like I walked out of there realizing, okay, if I can do that, and not Harrison Ford, not the guys in front of the camera,
yeah.
the guys behind it, whatever force was manipulating the way I was feeling in those moments. I wanted to do that, and so,
Yeah.
but I also understood, dude. I don't know where it came from because I'm certainly not the brightest bulb in the universe, but I decided early on, and I always had an affinity for writing, or for reading and reading, and my mother always really instilled that in myself and my brother. My brother's a big, filmmaker in his own right. He wrote World War Z and State of Play and The Kingdom and directed Mosul, and he's doing this big 50s era F1 thing in London right now. Like it's like we both were we both were kind of, we loved movies, but we were very much, again, like the multiplex. But
Yeah.
Raiders was just something that changed me. And then after that, and then it became, I got into Scorsese, I got into, the French New Wave, I got into,
Yeah.
Japanese Kurosawa and Ozu, and I got into then I got into the British neorealism, then I got into the Italian neorealism. So you just start to like, and again, I mentioned Criterion earlier, but you have this incredible, like I could build, to me, a curriculum for a film student as good or better than anything NYU or UCLA or USC or Columbia is going to do, the kind of the revered film schools. So you have, and especially, dude, at your age, it's like you just have nothing but resources, and maybe an abundance and overabundance of them. And you can get a little lost in the kind of the Warren like maze of stuff. But film to me was just it's just one of those. I mean, to be able to show a movie of yours to an audience in a theater and listen to that reaction, hear that, is just one of the great joys in life, dude. So it's when you ask me like to define it, I think it's so all encompassing. It's so porous for me, like that, the idea of like, it's so, there's so many different ways in which I absorb that. It's like, listen, I've been lucky, man. I've been able to make a living doing it, and that's been worth everything. That's been worth every bit of sweat, every bit of, as you mentioned, projects fall apart, this, that, and the other thing. It's still the greatest job in the world, dude. It really is. And even on this last one, Not Without Hope, we're in a water tank. We got cannons going off. You got these giant tip tanks dropping thousands of gallons of water on these guys, and it's at night. It's miserable, but you're looking around going, there's absolutely no place I'd rather be. This is where I'm supposed to be. And if you lose sight of that, or there's people around me that I would feel like would lose sight of that, I don't want to work with those guys. I want to work with people that understand how blessed we are and how lucky we are and how fortunate we are to be doing what we're doing,
Yeah. Oh man, you gave me so much great points. But hearing you talk about young Joe Carnahan watching Raiders of the Lost Ark, I mean, it is those films. I mean, like, look, I talk about it all the time on the channel. Like, it never gets any less magic watching a film. Like, it's just the
No.
most transcendent thing in the world. Like, both my parents are deaf, so we would always go to subtitle
Wow.
screenings, right? So it'd just be me, my sister, and it wouldn't be a packed cinema because subtitle screenings don't tend to sell as much, and it would literally just be us on the film, and we could all connect over this visual medium, and there's something that it never gets any less magic, man. And like, just I was talking to Eddie Hamilton earlier this morning, the editor of Top Gun Maverick, Mission Impossible. And when I told him I was interviewing you later, he said, "Oh, I love Joe's work. Tell Joe I said hi." But and it just never gets any less magical. And he was talking about what film means, and just hearing it, like, it got me a bit emotional, because there's not a day,
Sure.
and like, it sounds a bit silly, but there's not a day where like film gets any less magic, man. But that's an amazing point you brought up there, man.
No, brother, I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't. I think it's amazing that you can share that with your folks, and you guys have that commonality and that bond. That's very special, and it's something that I think is so it's so emotional to me. It's so and when you see something you haven't seen, or you're experiencing something you haven't experienced, and like, or you see a great film, um, um, it is. You're right. It is transcendent, and it's so funny we're having this conversation, dude, because I saw what, and I love this director, and I'm still trying to piece it together, but I watched Beau is Afraid last night, and I came away with it thinking that might be the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
But I love Ari Aster, so I'm trying to like go, and I maybe just caught me in a weird, but it's like, but it's still, for whatever I couldn't derive from it, it's still, that guy's still a phenomenal filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and I can still see, even if it didn't connect with me necessarily, it's still, that level of talent and that level of expertise is never, it's still prominent, even in the stuff you may not, and I'd say this for any filmmaker. Listen, there's Scorsese films that don't gel with me. There's Coen brother films that don't gel. I mean, I love those guys, especially the Coens. The Coens are probably my favorite. But
Really?
yeah, I think the Coens are my favorite. Like, and then I think Fincher is probably. I have such admiration for David Fincher, because he is, to me, this incredible technician and kind of master working in genre. And I mean, and I think, listen, Zodiac to me should have won Best Picture when it came out. It's a
Did it not win Best Picture?
It didn't get nominated, and should have been, but it was like masterful. But it's like those guys, and even like, you know, even in Fincher, like I'm not like a huge fan of Panic Room, but there's brilliant parts of, you know what I mean? It's like there's amazing stuff in it. So even when you get again like those things, I still have great admiration for the stuff that, because not everything's going to connect with you, dude. You know, Spielberg, there's movies that I don't connect with, you know, but you still see in there the flashes of the stuff that you absolutely love, you know. And you know, and it's so, yes, it's like I do I think going back to you and your parents, like to have that medium that you can share these things with, and these communal experiences is awesome, man. It really is.
Cause no, and dude, funny we were talking about. I remember we all watched Boss Level, and that was. I mean, I remember when we watched Boss Level. This was after you had agreed to do the interview. So I was like, the next film we're gonna watch is Boss Level, and I was like, no, we're gonna do it. And then we bought. I forget where. I think we bought it on iTunes or something. But we watched it, and just to be there with them, and then show them the email I got from you, and be like, just to watch a film where like I had actually known the director, like I'd been in contact with the director. It was the first time, and it was. Oh man, I'll just never forget. I was sitting there watching. I was like, the fella that you know picked that color for that scene, or the fella that was behind the camera for that, and it was like, you know.
I love that, dude. That's great, bud. That's great, and that's just great that you that again, dude. That you know, but that's the thing. It's like you got to go with these things, Daniel. With like this, like I said, the things that you love. You know, you're young now, dude. But you snap your fingers and you're not so young anymore, right? So. It's so important, dude, to give every bit of your energy to as I mentioned earlier, every bit of your energy and your being to the things you love, because nothing is. It's like the great line of Lawrence of Arabia: "Nothing is written but what men choose to write." Right? It's like that idea that you are ultimately the captain of your own cruise. You know, it's like and you have to really take those things into account, because you know I'm in my 50s now, right? So, but I can honestly say I'm better than I was in my 40s and in my 30s. It's like artists don't age like athletes. You know, I'm not a bad knee or a blown rotator cuff away from like, well, that's it. That's a wrap on my career. So I think that is you know, keep that pursuit up, dude, at top speed with what you want to do, and don't settle. Never settle. You know, figure out figure out the means with which to do the things that motivates you to get up every morning. You know, that's very important, dude.
And I mean, man, like that is filmmaking to me. The fact that I've gotten like it never gets any less crazy to me that people like you let me interview them, because like, look, I'm not like, no one's gonna do this and the Oscars are gonna see and say, you know what, we'll give him Best Picture. No one's gaining anything from letting me interview them, man. You know, and it's like there's every single day. You know, that's what I think happens in Hollywood. I think they just all sit. I think they just watch my videos and decide with that. But it's like, every single time, like I love, like I'm in my element doing this, and filmmaking is something like people said to me, oh, when you're older, so I imagine journalism is what you're, and like I've never even debated it. Like journalism, I love doing interviews, but filmmaking for me is like, that's why I start this channel, just to hear. This is my film school, basically. You know, like I'm not arsed to go to college for 4 years. Every day I'm interviewing filmmakers from France and Germany, so it's just, it never gets any less magic to me. Like I said, normally now I'm not so nervous for interviews. But I woke up this morning, my palms were sweating for this one. I was like, I don't want to say the wrong
for an
thing.
Hour, dude. Like, yeah, like they keep you waiting for an hour, which I apologize for, dude. Yeah,
no,
like,
dude. I was literally. It gave me time to relax, man. It gave me time to relax. I was like,
that's great.
This dude's just a talentless hack. No problem. No, anyway. So I was like, this dude will be late, so it's fine. No.
You could have started the interview like that. I've been right in my element, dude. Right in my element. Right.
No, I mean, man, we were just talking there about your career, and I mean about the films that inspired you. I mean, you came in with something like Narc, and then I think you look at your career, and I think sometimes people look at you and they associate you with those films like Smokin Aces and Boss Level. But to me, like for me, a film like Boss Level is, I think people go for the action, but it was the relationship between Frank Grillo and his son. There's always an inherent heart in your films that I don't know. I think people, whether or not they know it, that's why they like the films. Like, you can have 2 hours of the greatest set pieces ever, but they're going to leave that film and they're not going to think about it again, ever. So they'll be like, cool car chase. And then you look at your work and it's like, you've such an understanding of character, and yeah, I think maybe it's part of your empathy as a director. But how important is character for you and those decisions to make your films more personal? Because I think that's what I
Oh, but
gravitate to.
yeah, I think it's, dude. I think that's the whole shooting match right there. That's everything. Like
Yeah,
you lacking that, bud, lacking character, lacking that is the absence of drama, is the absence of interest, it's the absence of everything that I think make great movies. Because it's funny, like I showed my buddy, he's kind of preparing this. He wants to do this film, but he's not necessarily a screenwriter, so he's trying to figure out ways in which to kind of bring this thing together. And I said, well, listen, let's watch some Mike Leigh films. Let's watch Ken Loach. Let's watch
yeah,
the British neorealism. And we watched Secrets and Lies. And I don't know if you've ever seen it, Daniel, Secrets and Lies, but it's like, it's the story of this woman, Hortense, played by Marianne Jean Baptiste, who realizes that when her adopted mother dies, she wants to find her birth mother, played by Brenda Blethyn. Brenda Blethyn's white, Marianne Jean Baptiste is black.
yeah,
And you're watching the movie, and it kind of culminates in this barbecue at Timothy Spall, who plays Brenda Blethyn's brother, at his flat. And dude, the knot that you have in your stomach by the time they get there, and these are just characters. You know, Hortense is an optometrist. The Brenda Blethyn's character works in like a cardboard factory making like VHS sleeves. Like these are working class British people. And dude, you're so wound up at the end of that movie, like, oh my God, oh my God. And it's just characters and people talking. And I said to my buddy, you see that, dude? Godzilla can knock over every fucking building in
yeah,
Tokyo, and the Avengers can stop a giant piece of rock from falling on, but nothing matches this stuff. And
yeah,
that's why, do you see something like, but when they do it well, like Endgame, and you get like Avengers, where you feel the emotional tug of that stuff, it's fantastic. And that's what people remember. They don't necessarily remember, you know, shots per se. They remember moments between characters. They remember
yeah, yeah, yeah.
little, and I think that stuff is, when I was on this movie, I put Joe Beth Williams was in it, and she played the mom in Poltergeist, and I just, and I was, and that's a separate story, but for years I was fascinated about who actually directed Poltergeist, because I always thought Spielberg did it, and I
Yeah.
basically got confirmation that's exactly as I thought it was, is what it was, right?
Had a feeling.
So, yeah, but her husband John was there, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, man, I got to tell you about that scene in The Gray where James Badge Dale dies. I want to tell you about it, but I'm warning you, I'm going to get emotional just talking about that scene." And he did, and it was lovely, dude. It was like that stuff, or like getting people that have sent me tattoos of I've written one poem in my life, dude. It's in The Gray, and it's like that, and seeing people tattoo that on their arm, like that it's that meaningful to them, dude,
Dude.
is endlessly fascinating and deeply touching to me. So that's what that creating characters or creating moments like that resonate beyond the movie itself is what makes great films. It's what makes movies you talk about, years and years later. It's that stuff. It's why those The Godfather and Shawshank Redemption and
Yeah,
Jaws and you name it, the classics have never left us.
yeah,
And have that, the end of Citizen Kane, we realized Rosebud's a sled.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
wow, it's like that never loses its power,
No.
for me, and I think that's strictly, dude, strictly character.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one like no, like when you're watching a film like Raging Bull, right? I mean, like the way he directs, but that's a character portrait to me. That is you're witnessing a character self-destruct, man. I mean, you're there
Yes.
and you're loving the boxing, and it's yeah, and it's black and white and it's amazing, but it's a character portrait, and even in your films, especially in your films, man, even something like Smokin' Aces, if that was just action, no one would care about these characters, man. Like
No.
what? And it's the way I think I don't think people appreciate enough just how you can really, explore these characters in the visual medium. I think that's one of the things you do best. And every time I watch your films, it's the characters that I'm hooked with. Even you look at like the start of your career with Narc, it's like it's kind of a journey of forgiveness. I mean, you're introduced to this character, he did a bad thing. Can you forgive him? And it's
Right.
fascinating.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, you look at that aspect and seeing how film has changed. Let me ask you. You've obviously been in the industry, you started with something like Narc. What's it been like for you seeing how film has changed over the years? Is there any of your films you look at and say maybe if I tried to make that now, I wouldn't be able to. Do you look at your
Well,
work in that lens?
right. Well, what's funny, but is that I made a movie called Blood, Guts, Bullets, and Octane before I made Narc, right? And you can't even get that. Like I remastered it recently, my first film, and it was like an $8,000, but it got me into Sundance and it got the ball rolling. And then I spent the next 3.5 years trying to get Narc made because Narc was nothing like this other movie, nothing like it at all. So when I've seen, I guess what's changed, I guess, and listen, like you obviously have a tremendous amount of output now. The streamers have created this tremendous um, uh, uh, these channels, these tributaries need to be filled with product, right? So, some of my issue with the way film is right now is there's so much of it that we're getting lost in the. It's like great movies are getting lost in the shuffle, and I think
Yeah.
that wasn't the case 20-25 years ago. Like, I don't know, dude, if you've seen, it's on Netflix, Rick Linklater, Apollo 10 and a half.
Yeah,
It's
the
fantastic.
animated feature.
It's fantastic. And by the way, had my son not pointed it out to me, I never would have. Sorry, but somebody's calling through. I never would have seen it. And he knows I love Linklater, so he's like, "Dad, have you seen Apollo?" And I watched it 3 times. It's like it's fantastic. So I think what I listen. There's always going to be the movies that stand out, but I think it's getting less. It's harder to have something special that comes out that people go, man, you got to see this movie, and you got to go to a theater to see it. It's
Yeah.
like that is becoming increasingly difficult because there's such competition for screens, and there's such and we become like, it's big, it's Marvel, it's Disney, it's these big kind of tentpole movies, and I just don't want to think that we're losing our ability to see other types of movies in the theater. That's it's a slippery slope,
It
dude. And
is a
I'm not
slippery slope.
sure.
I was gonna say there's
Yeah,
no
it's
right
like
answer.
no, and listen, like I said, I love going to movies, but I like to see different types of movies. I don't want to just see um, Spider-Man, and I don't want to see yet another iteration of Batman. I think it's wonderful, man. And I think, listen, I made a promise to myself a long time ago to never make a movie with guys in capes, which is probably the dumbest fucking decision I've ever made in my life. It might be, pal, the dumbest thing I've ever done. But it, or a Star Wars movie, like a Star Wars film. It's like I'd had conversations like, do you want to meet with the with Pete, with the Lucasfilm people or whatever? It's like I love those movies, man. You don't want me anywhere near those because I'm just gonna, it's like I think that I want to be a fan of those films. I
Yeah.
don't want, you know what I mean? I don't necessarily want to participate. I want to be, because I think I'm more, I have to, stuff for me has to be more grounded. The A team trying to fly a tank is about as out there as I'm going to get in terms of like a superhero kind of thing. So but I'm just, again, and I think this is a consistent worry and a pervasive worry with a lot of filmmakers. It's like, well, am I ever going to be able to show my movie in a theater outside of a festival
Yeah.
because there's such hardcore competition for those screens, which again I think, and hopefully, do listen, that alleviates over time. And listen, you've got, I think the Screen Actors Guild is going to strike tomorrow, so
Yeah.
you're going to have a glut. That pipeline, dude, is going to be a little lighter than it's been in the past. So listen, the movie I just made, hopefully it's good for that, because it gets us the shot to actually go out and show this movie theatrically. And this is a movie that you should see theatrically.
Amazing.
Listen, Boss Level was always something I saw Boss Level theatrically a couple of times.
I
It's
wish
a
I
bang.
saw that in the cinema.
Oh, dude, it's a bang. I saw it at the I saw it in Hollywood, at the Cinerama. I mean, it was amazing, dude. It was like, that was a great film to see in the theater. It's a theatrical, it's a big crowd pleasing
The last
kind of a movie.
scene must have been unreal on a big screen with the.
Oh, dude, it's incredible. It's like, yeah, it was great. So so yeah, dude, I think that the cream will still rise to the top, and you'll still
Yeah.
have great movies, and they'll find their way to you by hook or by crook. But I just wish it was a little. I wish there wasn't so much of it, and there wasn't so much to parse through. But also, that means that I'm gonna have a job. That filmmakers
Yeah.
and filmmaking and movies are still popular, and people want to see them. So I'm certainly not gonna complain about that.
Yeah, no, look, it's a fascinating point. Before I started interviewing filmmakers, I interviewed comic book writers, and I was interviewing a comic book writer called Matt Fraction, who wrote Hawkeye, and he was writing X-Men. And he was like, I realized 20 issues into my X-Men run, I'm a better X-Men reader than I am an X-Men writer.
Oh,
And
that's great. Right.
that's something you can
Right.
only realize once you're kind of in on it and you kind of jumped in that. But it's fascinating. I mean, there are some things I think there are some directors who just don't levitate to certain projects, you know, and it's like you can take one of the greatest filmmakers in the world and you can like I wouldn't want to see them do a Star Wars film, you know. I'd prefer for them
Right.
to do their own things. And like
Yeah,
I
dude.
don't think there's a
Yeah, listen.
difference. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
I love Ryan Johnson. I don't want Ryan Johnson to do. It's not anything against Ryan. I just think you're asking a guy who's incredibly unique as a filmmaker and has his kind of brand to
Yeah.
kind of plug into something that is. And I thought the heat he took for that film was just so unwarranted. That guy's a phenomenal filmmaker. Like, so you know, and I thought that to me, looking at that, that was kind of a reminder to me. It's like there's the abject lesson, which is you know, like that's why I wanted to avoid it because, dude, you can't win in those scenarios. You can't win.
Yeah.
The fact Matt Reeves was able to kind of redo Batman and not get his head handed to him is amazing. You know, it's like, but again, and I thought that movie was okay. I don't think that they did anything in that film that Chris Nolan didn't do in Batman Begins that was cooler. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like, is our Bruce Wayne Batman obsession? Is there anything else that we can satiate this with? Is there any other? And again, we're going to reboot Superman. We're going to reboot. I get it, man. Listen, this keeps the lights on. It pays the bills,
Yeah,
and people
yeah.
make a lot of money off them. But it's just, I feel like, what's the end game? What do we, you know? And is somebody who could be doing something remarkable and brand new and innovative, you know, are tomorrow's Wachowskis being short circuited by the studio system wants to plug them into this big franchise,
Yeah.
and then you don't get the Matrix, you don't get the, you know, you don't get the stuff that, you know, that the kind of the newer breed of things that you know. And listen, I've certainly, you know, I was going to read when I was going to redo Daredevil, and I think again it got attributed to, well, there's another Carnahan project that didn't take flight. It's like I got a hold of that thing. It was Peter Chernan's company that had the rights, but they only had 3 weeks left, so it wasn't like I could do a lot of damage in that time. But I had a whole, my idea on Daredevil was I was going to do it in the motif was going to be different genres of rock, of music, and it was going to be Daredevil 73 was classic rock, Daredevil 79 was punk rock, Daredevil 85 was new wave. So you're going to have a trilogy of movies starting in 1973 and ending in 1985 that I thought would have been cool as hell.
Yeah.
It didn't work, right? It just didn't work. So
Yeah.
I've certainly toyed with these ideas of doing
My
like a big,
gosh, man.
you know, but dude, that was the extent of it. But I also grew up as a kid reading. I remember reading Frank Miller, The Death of Elektra, and I remember it shocked me because that panel where Bullseye is impaled
Yeah,
her
and
on
you
her own,
see her dress.
it's just, and I remember going, wait a minute, that's Daredevil's girlfriend. She can't be dead. And then Daredevil like throwing him off a building. I'm like, what? I remember like, I think I was, God, I must be around the same age, 11, 12 years old. But I remember like feeling like I've gone through some sort of membrane here into like the adult, because no comic that I read up to that point was ever that kind of graphic and gratuitous and like, wait, Daredevil lost? Like, what's going on? Like, it was just like shocking to me. So that, you know, as again, as a kind of, when I was a kid, my dad owned a grocery store in Middle Michigan, so I used to go in. He had a comic book rack. I used to read all of them. You know, I didn't
Yeah,
read
yeah,
like
yeah.
Archie and that kind of stuff, but I read everything else. But I was always a Marvel kid versus a DC kid. But I loved, like, I'd read the Flash. I'd read, you know, so it was it. I understand the natural tug and pull toward that world and the superheroes and all that other stuff. I just don't think it should be all we're doing, dude.
Yeah,
That's
no,
my,
you're totally right. You're totally right. Like, look, I love superhero films, and at the same time, it's like if we're getting, you know, 10 superhero films a year, what happens to the Robert Eggers' Northman that's going up against Spider-Man?
right.
Where's kind of Paul Thomas? Like Paul Thomas Anderson was 24, bangs out Boogie Nights, 28 makes Magnolia, I think one of my favorite films ever.
Great film.
Where is that PTA right now? Where is that young filmmaker who is going toe to toe
He's
with
being
these?
absorbed. Yeah, dude, you're absolutely right. But hopefully he's not being absorbed by that system. You know, hopefully
Yeah.
he's not being, you know,
One for them, one for them, one for me. Is that the myth?
right. But I think, but it's become increasingly like 2 or 3 for them, one for me. You know,
Yeah,
and I think, and again, with all due respect to Ari Aster, who I think is so supremely talented, I think Beau is Afraid was probably for him. because when you make the money, you know, you make a studio like A24 a boatload of money on Hereditary and Midsummer. It's like, okay, this is, take a shot, and I'll at least give him. It was extraordinarily ambitious, and it's like, and again, I enjoyed Everything Everywhere All at Once. I wasn't like a freak for that movie, right? I enjoyed it, but my son pointed out to me when it won Best Picture, it's like you have to applaud something that weird succeeding at that level, and he's
Yeah.
absolutely right. He's
Yeah.
absolutely right. And I work with Michelle Yeoh on Boston. I just adore her, and I'm glad that they. But he's right. Like something that almost avant-garde and bizarro at times to be honored in that way. We have to put our hands together, and he's absolutely right. Like don't lose sight of the fact that that was its own little chocolate bonbon, that thing. So but you're right, dude. I think I think about and worry about the same things. Is tomorrow's PTA being absorbed by a system that won't allow Boogie Nights or Magnolia or Punch Drunk Love or one of those movies of his that I love? It's like that's certainly concerning. And but again, it's like I say, dude, the filmmakers will find a way. People find a way to find their audience. They will find a way to break through the clutter and the noise and find the people that will enjoy their work.
And I mean, man, you make films for you. Like I can see that in your work. I don't like when you're jumping on something like the A-Team, which is a studio film. I believe that was because you were like, oh, the A-Team. I want to do the A-Team. I could do something real cool with the A-Team.
Well, dude, you know what's funny, bud? I was my ex-wife was the biggest A-Team fan. She grew up in Scotland. She's a huge A-Team fan. I was a big Miami Vice fan. Honestly, I thought the A-Team was goofy. I just did. But what I thought I could do with it was kind of, I did like the absurdity of some of the gags and some of the stuff that they did. So I thought with the right group of guys, we could do something. And I always thought that it was always, Bud, that movie was ultimately undone by bad marketing. And even listen, the head of marketing at the time at Fox literally found me in the commissary, the Fox commissary, after that movie had opened, and he hugged me and just said, "I fucked up." That was what he said to me.
No,
The
he
head of
did,
marketing,
did he?
because oh yeah, he said I fucked up. He went up against Karate Kid, and they went up against Karate Kid on the day the World Cup opened. And listen, I'm a casual soccer football fan. And the U.S. played Ghana in the opener, and I knew I was going to stay and watch that game. And I knew a lot of guys were going to stay in and watch the World Cup. And I tried to express this to them. It's like, guys, I think if guys like me are staying and watch the World Cup, and if mom's going to take the kids to a movie, they're not going to see the A-Team. They're going to see Karate Kid, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, if I had a nickel, dude, for everybody told me, man, you guys should have done a sequel. You should do a sequel. You should do a sequel. It's like, it just didn't get off the blocks, or we would have. It just didn't. It just didn't do what we needed it to do. I think it did 26 its opening weekend, and that's just not enough. That was 2010. Even then, it was like, it's not going to work. Karate Kid did like 65, so it's like that was a wrap. But
does that hinder your enjoyment? Because I mean, like, look, I think what I loved about the interviews I watched was like every time you get back up, man. Does that hinder your enjoyment of a film like that when you're like, okay, well, it didn't do as well as I hoped it would?
No, but because I've been blessed with having like the rewatchability of my movies is really good. Like I've had people say, dude, I was on USA, Smokin Aces on, I just sat down and watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's like, anytime, and there's films like I feel like listen, if I'm flipping through the channels and Heat is on or anything, I'm there, I'm watching it now. It's like so there's I don't, it doesn't ever hinder it, nor does it kind of sour me on that stuff. It's like I think that I had such a blast making that movie, and it was great. We did the promotional tour. I took my kid to Japan with Rampage Jackson and went to Disneyland. It was fantastic, man. And and I made some lifelong friendships on that movie. So it's like it was certainly the juice was worth the squeeze. It just didn't. We delivered. I knew we delivered. It's just the studio, just the marketing just didn't pan out ultimately.
I mean, look, man. I mean, the fact that I've watched all you, and like the fact that that doesn't hinder you, and you can still. I mean, you are truly, you're a very inspirational filmmaker, man. And it's so amazing hearing you talk about that. I mean, like, look, let me ask you. I mean, you look at all the films you've gotten to do, and what's the cultural impact? Because like last week there was a UFC card, and like I noticed two fighters were posting the once more into the fray thing
Oh,
on
that's
there.
so funny.
Like
Yeah,
Robert Whittaker, who was fighting Driscus Duplessis, put up a little post they saying once more to fight, and like it's just the cultural impact of your films that have kind of seeped their
that's
way into
crazy.
the world. What's that been like for you? Is there one example of your film that's been out there and where you're like, I did not expect it to?
Well, dude, listen, you mentioned Robert Whittaker. It's like, Tom Brady before the Super Bowl that we won with the Buccaneers did the entire poem
Yeah,
and did a whole video to it. And I had all these my buddies calling, going, dude, I think Brady's doing the poem for the Gray in this whole thing. And it's like it's insane. It's like, and that, like I said, like, like of course it would be a UFC like kind of course a poem like that
yeah,
would be meaningful,
yeah,
but it's like
yeah.
it's crazy. It's like like Tom Brady's American, Whitaker's an Australian. Like it's like it's like you get the breadth of that thing, and it's like it's just dude. It's deeply flattering to me, and two, I just never take it for granted, dude. I just am always like it's like you don't sit there and say, oh wow, man, somebody's gonna tattoo this on them years from now, or Tom Brady's gonna quote this poem before the Super Bowl. Like it becomes, I know why I wrote the poem. It was Otway's dad, and I thought he would have been a fan of Once More Upon the Breach, from Richard III, and he would have kind of, not being a poet, would have done a variation on that thing, right? And so that's where that came from.
So that's the
And I think,
culmination for the once more into the fray poem.
yeah, dude. And it's like Once More to the Fray, because but the idea of like it's like live and die on this day. That is anybody can. That's a motto that basically the idea is and I think it encapsulated the way that movie ends, which is it's not how you live so much as how you die, how you choose to die, and
Yeah.
dying on your feet fighting is what we'd all like to do. Um, or that's our wish fulfillment. Whether it actually happens. I mean, in honesty, like that was my wish fulfillment at the end because unlike Liam, if I was surrounded by a pack of hungry wolves, I'd probably just assume the fetal position and piss my pants, and they come in and rip me apart. So,
I just assumed the fetal position and
right.
pissed. At least you're honest. At least you're honest, Joe.
So
So I
yeah,
assume the
so
canon is
so
Liam Neeson just beat the shit out of all the wolves with the bottles in his.
exactly, man. It's so funny though, dude. It's like that in the creation of that. It's like it was the most that ending. I get asked what happened, and I always find it way more interesting to ask the person that's asking me, well, what do you think happened? And
Yeah.
I've seen, dude, it's crazy. Somebody sent me this theological battle between this like Lutheran minister and this atheist who had both written comparative papers on the Gray. One why it proved that God existed, and the other why it proved there was no God. And it's like I'm reading these like scholarly articles about
Dude,
this
oh, is that an
dumb movie.
article? Can people read that?
Yeah, man, I'll find it for you, dude. It's
Oh,
amazing. I
dude.
got it sent to me. I was like, wait, what? And it's like you start reading and go, God, the amount of thought that went into this. By the way, people far more intelligent than I am. And you realize if you put that out there sometimes, you allow it to be absorbed and extrapolated and reinterpreted, that you get these incredible
Yeah.
opinions of the stuff that you never considered. And it's like that. I think is such a gift, such an unusual, unexpected gift, I guess, that we have as filmmakers, if you're lucky, and that kind of stuff, sticks into the to popular culture, whatever it may be. Like
Yeah.
that is such an honor, that stuff happens. But like until you told me about that, I didn't know about that Robert Whittaker thing. And I'm a big UFC guy, and I didn't get that card, but like that's funny.
Yeah.
But it's certainly, a buddy of mine said that they had a the Detroit Lions had a defensive scheme called the Gray. Like it was like all these like it was like so you again when you hear that stuff, it's like I'm always kind of like amazed, but at the same time, I'm flattered. And it says, okay, you know what? We worked our asses off in that movie. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's hung around. I'm glad because it's still. I'm very much a blue collar way of thinking about these things. It's like, I don't. I think that I grind and I continue to
Yeah,
grind and I
you
continue
do,
to get
man.
better. And and dude, that's the anytime you feel like putting your feet up, it's like that's the wrong time to do it. It's
Yeah.
like I'm a big fan of I'll sleep when I'm dead. I'm a big fan of that, like that quote, like just keep figuring out ways to keep doing your thing, and I'm hopefully gotten better at that as a age and not I don't worry about I was doing stuff on Not Without Hope. We were doing stuff with the camera. I'm like, with Juan Mi, I said, a couple 50-year-old guys doing this. Like, give me a young kid that's going to do the same stuff. I want to see it. I want to see them beat what we're doing right now,
Man.
and I think I love that.
I love that you can take those risks and that like you're not contained and that, like it's probably sacrilege to say because I'm Irish. The Grey is my favorite Liam Neeson film with Michael Collins exit. I'm probably gonna get the shit out of me. Like, dude, I love The Grey, man.
Well,
And
that's great.
it's
That's
like,
great.
yeah,
I think it's better than Michael Collins. I'm sorry. All due respect. It's better than. Wait, was Michael Collins? Is it Neil Jordan? No, who is
yeah,
that? Oh
Neil
God,
Jordan.
dude. By the way, dude, that's real sacrilege to say that. You're Irish and you're going against Neil Jordan. My God.
Neil Jordan knows he can get it. Neil Jordan, Jim Sheridan on top. No, I'm only kidding. I love Neil
Oh,
Jordan. Neil
Jim
Jordan.
Sheridan. Oh my God. There's another level of that. There you go, dude.
Dude,
But like,
I met Jim Sheridan and he is just the sweetest. He's like, I went up to him and I was like, Mr. Sheridan, I'm the biggest fan of you're my personal hero. I want to be like you when I grow up. And he looked at me and he just pulled me in and hugged me. He is such a G, man. I love
oh,
Jim
that's
Sheridan, man.
great, dude. I mean, dude, you think about the movies he made with Daniel Day-Lewis. It's like, come on, man. Like those are like classics, like In
Yeah.
the Name of the Father, The Boxer, My Left Foot. Like it's like that. Sheridan's a legit, that's a heavyweight filmmaker, man. It's like that's a heavyweight filmmaker. Ireland's got a couple of OGs, but
You
like
know what? You're right. The Grey is my second favorite Liam Neeson film. Michael Collins back on top.
I like how you
Baby,
got
I
to
didn't
reverse
mean it.
course, dude.
Neil,
Remember, you got to live there, pal. You got to walk
Neil,
around there. So yeah, that was
Neil,
good.
baby,
That
I
was
didn't
smart.
mean it. Joe was a one-time thing. It's only this one time. I'll buy you flowers or something. I'll make it up to you, Neil. Come on, I'll make it up to you. I'll make
It's
it up to
okay,
you.
dude. I get it, man. That was a good course correct right there.
There
You
you
don't
go.
want to
I
go
had to
against it.
fix it. I had to fix it. It
Yeah,
went
dude.
wrong. I could feel it.
I
No,
think
I
that's
mean,
wise. I think that's wise. That's
man, do
great.
you feel like as a filmmaker, when people try and put you in a box, like, I mean, you come in with Narc, and then you've made films like Stretch and Smokin Aces, which are like on the totally polar opposite end, and then you make something like The Grey, but I still feel like all of these films are connected. I still don't feel like they're all
Sure.
that opposite. Do you feel when people say to you, you're kind of expected to make these type of films, do you as a filmmaker say, I'm just going to make what I want, I'm just going to do what feels
Oh yeah. I think that. Listen. I think that I like to laugh. I love to laugh, and it's like so. Films like Stretch, which I had the best time on that movie, and you got somebody like Patty Wilson, who I think is such a supremely gifted actor and funny and smart. And then I got Chris Pine, and I get all these Ed Helms, like Jesse Alba, like all these great people that I got to put in that film. And that was I think last that was my I want to say it's my last movie with Ray. That's the last time Ray and I were able to work together.
Yeah.
So it's like I love that movie as much as any of them, and I think that but it's funny, dude. It's like I like I said this on this like Not Without Hope. It's like I've only made really two dramas, Narc and The Grey, and I think both of them are considered kind of you know important members of that genre, whether it's the police genre or the survival genre or whatever. And I think this one, I think Not Without Hope has that same kind of. I like making dramas, but I think I love comedies and that kind of, like The Boss Level and Smoking. Like I just adore those. Those. But I think Smokin Aces is really a mash. At times it's very dramatic. At times it's over the top. At
Yeah.
times it's. So you get this kind of weird genre splicing at times. But yeah, man, you just have to kind of you got to do what makes sense to you and what kind of gets your motor running. And I don't want to make, dude, I don't want to take 2 years to make a movie. I want to make 4 movies in 2 years. I want to be like prodigious in that way and not sit still. And I shot this movie in 27 days, and if I go over 40-45 days, it's just not for me. We're the crew I put together. We're multiple films into this relationship, and we're fast, man, and we're efficient, and we don't fuck
Yeah.
around. And so sorry, I'm using bad language there. I apologize.
Dude,
But
these videos make fuck all. Say what you want. I make no money off these videos, man. Go ahead,
dude,
man.
you're Irish. Like if fuck you is fuck has got to be your second or third favorite word.
Dude,
So-
after bollocks and shit, it's somewhere up there, man. Like honestly, man.
it's top 5, dude.
It's not the worst.
But,
You can call me anything. It won't be the worst thing I've been called this morning. Go ahead, man. I mean, my parents are deaf and mute, and they still call me horrible words. So they find a way, man.
I love it. I love it. But no, dude. I think that the making of, I like, dude. I think, listen, you brother, you got to bleed in everything. You have to bleed into everything. I have 2 speeds, on and off. There's no 80%, 85%. You're either full tilt boogie, hitting the wall at 150 miles an hour, or you're sitting still. Like I don't have degrees of, like I would say, like we mentioned, like movies, like my buddy Ben Bray, who's been my friend for 30 years. I produced his directorial debut, which is a movie called El Chicano, and it's kind of like a Latino superhero. And when I tell you, dude, I never worked harder on a movie. I never learned more, and I was never more crushingly disappointed in something not working. Because when I tell you, dude, that movie cratered and was dead on arrival, we released it a week after Endgame in about 600 theaters, and we didn't do jack shit in terms of business.
Really?
And it's a good film. It's a good film, and it just got ignored, and it was heartbreaking. But I wouldn't change it, dude. If I had to do it again, I'd do it with the exact same effort and vigor
Yeah, I can see that.
and sense of purpose, because it's bullshit to be any other way. It's just bullshit. It's like the idea that I worked as hard on Stretch as I worked on the Grays, I worked on the A-Team, as I worked on anything else, like that's what you have is, like, dude, if I showed you my other room, I have an Avid in there. Like I'm cutting this movie with my buddy,
Really?
because my friend Kevin, who's cutting now without hope, who cut Boss Level, who cut Shadow Force, the one I just did. I've known him 30 years. We started out in promotions and television promotions. We were in our mid 20s, and so I have a shorthand with him, and we have a a kind of a creative to and fro that I really enjoy. But I don't rely on, like, I got to stay in it and stay engaged and stay present and be full of ideas and be full of of energy and creative kind of juice to keep things moving. Or look, because if I don't, I feel like I'd be at sea. I don't know what the hell I'd be doing if I wasn't doing it like
Would
that.
you ever retire? Would you ever do the Quentin
Never.
Tarantino? Never.
Never.
Yeah.
I'll drop dead hopefully in my 90s, although I don't think I'll get anywhere near my 90s. But if I do,
Those cigars, bro, they're not good. I was telling you.
but brother, listen, look at Ridley just did Napoleon. He's doing the Gladiator thing with another Irishman with what's his name?
Paul Mescal.
Dude, I tell you what, After Sun just freight trained me. I was inconsolable, sobbing watching that movie.
I watched it and I was like, I watched it. I was like, I think I hate that film, but I just hated the way it made me feel because the next day I couldn't stop thinking about it.
It was that little girl was amazing and he was incredible, and there was anyway, but
snubbed at the Oscars. Snubbed at the Oscars.
I snubbed. It was that was amazing, but Ridley's 85 years old. He's got 5 movies in the pipeline, and like I want to be that guy. I want to be prolific in that way. Like keep moving, keep making movies. Don't get caught up on opinions or this, that, or the other, or review. You just can't, man. You got to do what you want to do, and again try to. It's more and more difficult to stay viable in this business because there's so much on the line and there's so much. So, dude, if I got to go make nothing but $5 to $10 million movies because that's what I like and that's what is available, and I'm going to do that. I'm not going to I don't judge anything based. And by the way, the minute you go over, you're into the hundreds of millions. I see a budget's like $100 million. Okay, you know how many opinions come attached with $100 million? Yeah. Or $200 million, or how much did Indiana Jones cost? How much did this movie cost? It's like you're talking about an excess, dude, of opinions, of viewpoints, of perspectives, and you have to account for every single one of them, and that gets tough. On this movie right now that I'm cutting, I have final cut. That's huge, right? But I'm not abusive about it. I'm not telling everybody, hey, go fuck yourself. I'm not going to listen to anybody's notes. Of course I am. You can get great notes from no matter what. If you're willing to listen, you never know. And by the way, even a shitty note can turn to something great because it gets you thinking in another direction. Yeah. So it's like these are all factors, and these are all things that you think about, but it never. I just don't, dude. It's like I say, when I go all in, and whatever it may be, drama, comedy, whatever it may be. The work is the thing because I'm miserably bad at so many other things. Can't play guitar, can barely, my golf swing's terrible. But this thing that I've given majority of my life to and my energy to, I think I'm quite good at. I should be. Yeah.
There's this quote you said. It was when I'm on set, it's a democracy. When I'm in the editing room, I'm a dictator. I remember that from one of your interviews.
Yeah, man.
I remember this when I was watching it, but yeah.
Yeah, it is, dude. And it's like, listen, when I have actors, it's like I tell them that is a brutal dictatorship in that cutting room, and I will extract from you what I need to extract from you. Even if you didn't know I was rolling, even if I stole something, I will turn something unintentional into something very intentional. And it's like, and that's also the power of editing. That's the power of being able to put these pictures together. It's like you really have tremendous scope and the ability to do a lot of things, man.
Yeah,
And so again, you should be listening. If you've been running sprints for 30 years, you should be a reasonably good sprinter.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I look at it the same way. It's the same way of thinking about this process. It's just like nothing is given, everything is earned, and you got to go out and get after it every single day. You know.
Man, and you're such an inspiration in that sense, man. Like to see filmmakers like you just chasing it. Let me ask you, is there any one of your unrealized projects that stings a little bit even to this? Because I mean, some of the
Oh,
scripts are on Google, and I read it, and it's like, oh, Killing Pablo, Death Wish. There was just some beautiful stuff there. Is there any of your films where
by
you
the
were
way,
like,
but you just mentioned the two that I would have mentioned, which is Killing Pablo was brutal because I spent 12 years researching that. But then I got to tell you, dude, and then Jose Padilla comes along and they did Narcos and it was fantastic.
yeah?
I couldn't even be angry at it because they did it so well.
Would you ever
But
do it now?
would I do it now? I don't know, but I feel like that time has maybe passed. Maybe I'd come
Yeah.
back to it because it's such a good script. Because it's really about the manhunt for Pablo. It's really from the American perspective of that whole thing. So yeah, but and then Death Wish, dude, to me is the single best screenplay I've ever written. That just got
It
that dude.
changes
By the way,
into first
it's the
person
one.
after.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you've read it, dude. You've seen it. You've seen this. Yeah, dude. It's. And you know what, dude? I want that back. I want that back because the version that they made, Eli's version, is not really anything like what I did. I think it was in Chicago. It was like I wrote that to be very much a Los Angeles based movie,
Yeah.
and it was the one time. And by the way, dude, honestly, Daniel, it's the one time in my career I could say that I sold out. I sold out. I
Yeah.
did. My lawyer told me what the sole credit bonus was for that movie, and I'm like, I need the money. So I took the dough, and you know what? In taking the dough, I said to myself, "Shut your mouth about whatever." Listen, man, and you know what? It's done quite well for me on the residual side of things, so I can't complain. But I do want that script back so that I can, and I've got some friends now that are in places at Amazon that could probably help me out because they own MGM now, So it's one of those movies, dude, that I really want to make. That
I mean,
if
I
I got
like.
like, dude, like if I got Denzel to play that position, like that would be unbelievable, dude. But that one, and then White Jazz for a while, but I just feel like it's not the right that the Elroy kind of LA is not something that people would touch with 100-foot pole now because it's tricky, man. It's very
Yeah, yeah,
tricky.
yeah, yeah.
And so, but yeah, you mentioned, yeah, Pablo and Death Wish are the two that I'm really like, man, I wish I could.
Man.
But that, dude, listen, this is just part and parcel of
Yeah, yeah.
how it goes. It's like the De Palma thing about you have this, you have this idea about what your career is going to look like, and then life happens, and you look up and go, oh wow, I didn't think I'd make those movies, but I did.
Yeah.
So dude,
Dude,
you
you're
just never know.
totally right.
Never
I
know.
appreciate you being honest with me, man. I mean, that was like was something that drew me to you in your interviews. It's like you're like I remember you said something was like if I could go back and tell young Joe Carnahan something, it'd be shut the fuck up and stop talking so much. You
Yeah,
know,
stop
man.
talking so much. Yeah, dude, not everybody needs to know what's on your mind. I mean, I think that's something I had to learn the hard way. It's like I have this, and I tell you, dude, I'm dealing with it now. I deal with it in present tense. It's like not everyone needs to know what you're thinking. It's not. It doesn't make you honest. It makes you vulnerable. It's like that's what you have to understand sometimes is that your truth and the idea that the truth is this, blinding light and force for good is neither here nor there in this business. It's loaded with liars and bullshit artists and scumbags, and understand that's what that particular veldt looks like. When you look over this, you look over the Serengeti of Hollywood. It's like it's loaded with those types of creatures, not woodland sprites and fairies that can grant every wish and appreciate your candor and your honesty. That's just not
Yeah.
the way that shit is built out.
But I
So
think for every 10 of those, there's one Joe Carnahan who takes the time to let some 15-year-old dickhead interview him. And that means everything. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just
that is
sacrifices the film, man.
that's the perfect cap on it right there, dude. There you go.
You can use that. You can use that in
I'm gonna
Narc,
use that.
Narc 2.
I'm gonna say, yeah. I'm gonna quote you. Daniel Fee said, "For every 10 guys, there's a Joe Carnahan that lets a 15-year-old dickhead interview him." So that's I'm gonna put that on t-shirts, dude. That's great.
There you go, baby. We'll get the merch going, man.
That is great, man.
My
That is
last
great.
couple of questions I'd love to ask you. I mean, the script for Death Wish and Killing Pablo, they're amazing. Are the scripts for MI2 for your Mission Impossible and for your Daredevil out there or no?
The Daredevil script never came to fruition, dude. Just the ideas behind it. The mission script is out there. It's so funny because I always thought the idea of them the Mission Impossible being disavowed or like this whole thing that showed up in like I think Rogue Nation. So there's stuff about it that showed up that I thought was very close to what Danny Gilroy and I had done.
Yeah.
So it's out there. It's like, and I remember I did doing a previs that like this whole car chase that was in the fog that I basically did in Shadow Force. I basically did the Mission Impossible chase I wanted to do in this new movie. So there's a version of it in this movie. So yeah, dude. And I'm trying to think of the other stuff that might be out there, but yeah, the mission script. I've had people that want to read it. I just don't want to get sued. So
yeah.
Like, but it was very different. But again, man, you got a guy like Chris McQuarrie who's just one of the best guys going, who's just
lovely,
world class talent. And and that's the smartest thing that franchise did, I think, was those guys, hooking up to that dude and what he's been able to do with those last couple movies are just fantastic.
It's so amazing to hear you talk about McHugh. I love McHugh. So he was one of the, like you, it was you, McHugh, who were the first two to actually give me any interactions, man. So I'll always like the two of you. Yeah, my rider dies. You know what I'm saying?
He's just the best guy, man. He's just the best guy. It's like lovely, super talented, super kind, and somebody I have a lot of time for. Chris is great.
Dude, I mean, totally. My last couple of questions. I mean, I'm so sorry for taking up so much of your time.
No, but don't worry about it. It's all good, man.
I know how much you've going on. I mean, let me ask you. I mean, to see the impact your work has had on people, what does that mean to you? When you're on set and I mean, you're shooting The Grey in, where did you film The Grey?
We shot in Smithers, British Columbia. Yeah.
British Columbia. What was that like? Was that because there's a picture you
shot a couple of days? We're like 38 below zero, and you're just like your body does not want to be out there. And what was interesting is it turns actors into reactors. Like they're not thinking about their lines anymore. They're not thinking about any of that stuff. They're just thinking about
begins. Acting stops and behavior begins.
Exactly, behavior begins. So no, dude, it's been. That was an extraordinary experience. Like, and I think up until even on this last one, now I hope it's like you realize you spend your time chasing what that felt like, because you're making a movie, but you also happen to be having this adventure at the same time. And that's the best of both worlds too. When you're really out in the world, but you're doing something, but you're also realizing, I'm living life right now. This is life, And I thought that was and I had it on this last one. It was really remarkable because a lot of things happened on Not Without Hope. It's like I was in this thing. I met my girlfriend. I fell in love. Like it's crazy. I had this really kind of remarkable experience on that movie, and you realize about how rare that is and how you're so blessed.
That's film, man. Like, I mean, you hear Francis Ford Coppola on Apocalypse Now threatening to kill himself. I mean, even though, he has a gun in his mouth, it's like you're making a film and you're in this element, and I'm not going to tell Francis Ford no, Francis, you should be grateful. I'm not going to tell him how to direct. But like, right. I heard a story from Sean Anders, who's a comedy director. He's done some great stuff, and he was telling me sometimes he just walks across the Warner's Brother lot and he just looks around. And to me, once hearing that, like, it's great to hear people like you don't take for granted. And I think your love for film comes true, man.
No, you can't. And it's like, and when your question about does that, it's like, listen, and the other thing is like, I don't feel like I've started. I don't feel like I've started yet. Like and I want that feeling to ever go away. Like, I don't feel like I've done the thing that I'm going to do, whatever that may be. whatever capstone is out there, I don't feel like I've done the thing I'm going to do. And I think that's a really important way of thinking about your work, is that, no, man, I'm doing this and I'm going to do something else, and I'll do something else. And I'll do something else. And I think that pursuit is a very healthy one, and lends itself to, longevity, and that's what I really want to, that's what anybody wants. You just want to hang around and be an old bastard that they got to deal with.
Dude, man, I hope when I'm in LA, you're still alive.
Oh, buddy, yeah, well, get to LA in the next 2 years. I think it's okay. Anything past that, dude, no guarantees, pal.
Fingers crossed. Just stay alive for a little bit, Just
I shall. For you, I will.
Put it in a nice
jar. When you get here, dude, beer's on me. We'll take you.
I'm growing out the mustache, man. Look, I'm Irish. I'm Irish. My liver's all right. Like we're bred. Dude,
well, you're 15, dude. Get to 18, and we'll talk about the condition of your liver.
You have to be Irish. Is someone in your? Do you have Irish family?
Irish. Yeah, Scott's Irish. Yeah,
dude, because I know people like you, man. Down at the local watering hole. Like, there's Joe Carnahan.
Dude, old rummies that never leave the stool. That's me, dude. I'm sure.
No, dude, I could tell you're Irish. You're my Irish brother, man. No, I was debating. I was debating on telling you this, but before we finish up, I was like, I might as well share. And when I first watched Smokin Aces, I was with my mother and my father, because we all watch films together, and it was just a type of film because they love action films. And afterwards, I didn't want to say this case, it made me look like a huge idiot. But I said to them, like, one day I'm going to make something that has us feeling how we feel right now after watching that.
Oh,
and so, dude, I just want to say, to the fact I got to chat with you, it's been such a pleasure. My last and final question before I let you go: what advice would you have for anyone looking to become a filmmaker?
I think, Bud, the constant, perpetual pursuit of that thing. What do you want to do? Don't wait around. Put it down on paper. Figure out ways in which, like I said to you, like my buddy's from Tijuana, Mexico, and he hadn't seen the British neorealists. He hadn't seen Ken Loach and Alan Clark and Mike Leigh and these types of filmmakers who don't work with a traditional script, who sit with their actors and improvise and get these scenes kind of blocked out and understand what they're going to do in the moment. It's a different way of making a movie, because I felt he was blocking himself up by, well, I can't write a screenplay. Okay, we'll figure out another way to do it. How else can you do it? There is no right way, dude. There's no, I should get this registered with the DWGI. I should do this. I should do that. It's like, all that shit is pro forma. All that stuff is just technical mumbo jumbo. Go out and do it. And the thing is, dude, especially for your generation, the thing I'm holding right now is better than any film camera I ever had at your age. Yeah. Way better. The cinematic setting on this thing is remarkable. Like, I've shot little movies. I shot like this stupid little, like, between my 2 8-year-olds in Paris. Like, my one daughter was trailing the other one like it was a spy movie, and I'm cutting it together for them, right? It's fantastic. It's better than any Super 8 camera I ever had. So you certainly have the means and the resources, unlike any other time, dude. You could shoot a movie on an iPhone and get in Sundance. And I think that is remarkable. And you know what? It's the leveling out. You mentioned Coppola earlier. Like, Coppola said famously, like, this will be an art form, and a little girl in Ohio can pick up a camera and make a movie. A little
fat girl in Ohio.
Yeah. It can pick up a camera and make a movie. So I think that you're talking about a time and place, where you can do nothing but succeed, and you just need the gas in the tank to go do so. That's it, dude. And what you're doing, Bud, and kind of getting after it the way you're getting after it, is 95% of the game. I promise you. It's 95% of the game. So keep it up. That would be my advice to you. What you're doing right now is exactly what you should be doing. Keep it up. That's it.
God, watching your work has taught me about 10 lessons in resilience, man. Seriously, it's been what pleasure. I'll talk to you a little bit off air. Before we finish up, are you on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere people can go follow you?
But I'm on Instagram, but I never go on there, and I'm swearing off social media, and I'd rather just speak through the movies. It's like, I think it's better. It's like much better for me just to talk through that medium than blab on about politics or whatever dumb shit I do that can be then weaponized and used against me in a couple of years. So I'm just going to skip that process. But no, I'm not, dude. So they're going to have to watch your channel to see if anybody's interested in what's on my mind. There it is,
Yeah, I know for a fact I am, Joe. What a pleasure it's been chatting with you.
Me too, dude.
I just want to say thank you so much. Before we finish up, everyone should go check out your work. But yeah, thank you, everyone. Please make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, if you have the means, please donate to the National Deaf Society. Thank you so much. But thank you, Joe. It's been such a pleasure.
Mine too, Daniel. Thank you, man.
Thank you. And I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.